I'm not gonna hold you guys. I posted this TikTok a couple months ago, and when I tell y'all I was getting drugged all throughout TikTok, it was a mess. But I'm still standing 10 toes on what I said, and I'm gonna let y'all watch the full video to see what I'm talking about.
Misogyny! I think the answer is misogyny.
This creator made a good point in talking about why a lot of the most popular ships in fandom have two guys, and how typically writers don't know how to write women, and so obviously people are going to ship the two well-written men together. But even in certain fandoms where the two male characters have nothing going for them and there's a female character with more personality, they still won't ship them together. The best example of this is the whole Into the Spider-Verse fandom. This is the most popular fandom that came out of the most recent Spider-Verse movie, and this literally doesn't make sense to me, especially when we have Jessica and Miguel, and Jessica is literally Miguel's right-hand woman, the most popular ship, and I'm gonna put my money on straight up misogyny. So y'all just watched that TikTok, right? And I still stand by everything I said in that TikTok, and the comments that I got under that were trying to gaslight me and were trying to deflect the point. This video is for y'all because y'all were not being serious. As somebody whose whole brand is that she is a black girl in fandom and has literally been a big nerd since I was in elementary school, I know how y'all treat black women and women in general in fandom space. But despite the fact that we have claimed that we are so progressive as a fandom, right? And I'm just talking about throughout all fandoms, we still have a rampant misogyny issue that we refuse to talk about, and this is exactly why I decided to make this video, because y'all are tripping and I just can't stand it no more. What is this place? I don't know. Let's check it out though. Shush. Everybody shush. Everybody shush. It seems as if somebody new has just stumbled upon our pastoral court. Hi there, stranger. My name is Ella Pastoral, and all of the lovely people that you see before you are a part of my esteemed court. From my squires who have early access to my videos, to my nobles who have special behind-the-scenes access, to my dukes and duchesses who are able to pick out topics for my videos, to my own special royal advisors who mean so much to me. All of these people make up the Ella Pastoral court. If you want to be like these lovely people and be a part of my esteemed court, go to Ella Pastoral on Patreon. But it seems as if you need to be on your way, traveler. Let's head back to the regularly scheduled content. So before we can really lock in and talk about all of the issues with fandom, we really need to talk about what a fandom is so we can all be on the same page. According to the American Library Association, fandom refers to a community of people who are passionate about something, whether it's a film, a band, a television show, a book, or a sports team. The growing availability of media and social media networks have provided individuals more opportunities to discover content and then more easily find groups of like-minded people with whom they can share and exchange proof of their fandom. Discussions, writing, arts, etc. I'm definitely in the camp that definitely believes that fandom culture can be whatever we make it. We just have to work together and talk about the negative issues, but also enjoy what fandom can bring us. A great example of a fandom that I really love is, okay, a dead fandom now, but it's still one of my favorites, is the Jujutsu Kaisen X Disney Princess fandom. That whole crossover event happened because the JJK fans were going through a little bit of, I don't even know, like psychosis because of the whole Shibuya arc. Everybody was low-key going through trials and tribulations, so they said, hey, because we're so sad, we need to find a way to cope, and that's how the whole JJK X Disney Princess thing happened, right? That whole crossover event just showed that fandom can be fun when we choose to make it fun. Hi guys, I have a very special guest today. This is my friend Erin Knox. She makes wonderful juicy video essays, and I wanted to have her on my channel in order to talk about fandom discourse and the lack of sapphic content that we have. Erin, I want to say hi.
Hi, I'm Aronok. I make a bunch of video essays. I also co-write for Jessie Genders, so if you've watched any of her stuff, then you've probably watched something with my words in it. And a mass that's probably relevant.
Context. So the reason why I even wanted you here for an interview, not doing any behind the scenes stuff, is that I wanted to talk about misogyny in shipping culture. This is something that I've been pressed to talk about, but I wanted to be respectful, get so many different perspectives, and I just feel like knowing you as a person talking on Discord, I just feel like we had to link.
No, seriously, I mean, I love getting to chat with you, so.
Well, thank you.
I think because I came in at an older age, I had a lot more realization of like, oh, fandom online's kind of toxic. Big surprise, hot take of the century.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a woman. Especially if you're a woman. Like every woman that makes anything in any fandom space experiences some degree of harassment. It's just kind of unfortunately been so normalized. And I think that goes back to like Gamergate and all of that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
even separately from that, even like not accounting the right wing, like far right weirdos, I think people's latent misogyny is so inbuilt in the way that we socially interact with people that women experience a degree of scrutiny. Scrutiny is the word I'm looking for. Scrutiny that male counterparts just don't experience. Yeah. And so if a woman is popular in fandom, whether it's on Tumblr, when it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitter, or Twitter's dead now, Blue Sky.
Woo, guys, follow us on Blue Sky, yes.
Yeah. Or TikTok, which is also unfortunately going to be dead for Americans. Whatever space it is, I just see this so consistently that if you're a woman and you talk about pretty much any topic in any sort of passionate way, every single word is torn apart and examined any way that it can be twisted into an attack. It will be. And that happens to some extent to many spaces, especially if those men aren't white, aren't cis. I'm not saying men don't get harassed in these spaces, because they absolutely do, especially marginalized men. I'm not trying to minimize that. What I'm saying is that consistently what I have heard from the men in these spaces is that the amount of harassment they receive is on a magnitude lower degree than the women in the same spaces. Yeah. So this is the men's own opinion on, like, they don't experience as bad of harassment as we do. But that doesn't, like, I want to be clear that amount doesn't mitigate awfulness of any amount of it. The only world in which it would be okay or good for people is if there was none. And so we can recognize the imbalance and the ways in which women, especially marginalized women, like you and myself, how we get disproportionate amount of that harassment and that hate and that sort of interaction. I mean, I have like one or two older videos, particularly my Matrix video, which still get views enough that I basically get a hate comment on it every week, not twice every week. You know, and if it's getting any sort of attention for a little while, there'll be periods where I'm just getting one every single day, and that video is years old. So that's not even like new stuff or stuff that's particularly out there. But because of the type of men that go in these fandoms, when they find something like that, when they find a woman talking about a topic that they care about, I think there's a degree of frustration that they have because they feel like they are entitled to owning the space.
So personally for me, I feel like the three big pillars that keep a fandom alive, thriving, and overall very fun are fan theories / headcanons, fan art, as well as fanfic. I've definitely experienced the highs and lows that those three pillars can give us, and I definitely need to talk about how all of those three pillars have been infected by misogyny, and how a lot of people with their underhanded biases can contribute to that misogyny, okay? But before I really dive deep, I want to talk about what is misogyny before I talk about how the three pillars exemplify misogynistic attitudes. According to the Population Media Center, misogyny is the hatred of, contempt for, or prejudice against women. It is a form of sexism that is used to keep women at a lower societal status than men, thus maintaining the societal roles of patriarchy. Misogyny has been widely practiced for thousands of years. It is reflected in art, literature, human societal structures, historical events, mythology, philosophy, and religion worldwide. It is in movies. It is in books. It is in popular culture and politics. Misogyny is omnipresent and presents itself in all forms. One of the main ways that I see misogyny in fandom culture is something I like to call bad writing for women. One of the main reasons why female characters are sidelined in fandom is literally because the people who wrote these characters to begin with gave us nothing. The material wasn't there. And it is so sad to see. As somebody who used to be a big anime watcher, I still gotta make that video on why I stopped watching anime. A lot of the female characters were giving scraps. They were giving scraps. And so because of the fact that the writing for these female characters was so lackluster, it definitely caused us in the fandom to care less about them because there was nothing to work with. It's definitely easier to fall in love with a character and feel more attached to a character when there's more for us to consume, you know? There are 3 main characters that I can think of as of me filming this right now, but I'm definitely gonna ask y'all to do some homework and leave some female characters from whatever fandom you're in that you feel like was neglected. But I'm definitely thinking about Nejire and Ochako for My Hero Academia, as well as Jessica Drew from Across the Spider-Verse. So a lot of my issues with My Hero Academia definitely has to be with the way that the female characters are done, but the most prominent female characters that I felt like were a letdown were definitely Ochako and Nejire. In order to understand my personal beef with how Ochako was done, I need to even talk about Nejire. So for those who watch like the early seasons of My Hero Academia, you know that it is obviously based in a school, and in schools there will always be the group of excellent students that everyone wants to look up to. In My Hero Academia, that was definitely the big 3. So in the big 3, it's Nejire, Nirio, and Tamaki, right? They're all the big 3. And I really feel like we got a lot of character development in terms of Mirio and Tamaki. They're some of my favorite characters that have come out of the entire My Hero franchise. But then when you pan the camera and look at the 3rd member of this big 3, you get nothing. It is very hard for me to really describe why I love Nejire, except for that she's just that girl, because she doesn't really get that much development. And that's just a letdown because she's literally a part of the big 3. Like, she's literally in a group with Mirio, someone who was supposed to be All Might's successor. You would think that she is her, right? But even though she's literally on that level, she isn't really given that character development. And I really feel like that feeds into the issue that I have with Ochako. It is obvious that Class 1A and Class 3A are supposed to have a lot of parallels, right? And so the fact that Ochako really isn't in Class 1A's big 3 always blew me. I really feel like she was supposed to be built up to be Class 1A's Nejire, but she just wasn't. Like, Ochako had her own reasons for trying to be a hero, all that, right? She wanted to literally get her money up so she can help her parents, and all of that drive and all of that desire practically fell to the wayside because the writer wanted to practically push this plot of her being in love with Deku. But low-key, everybody in love with Deku, but the way they did her characterization because she was in love with Deku was just not it. She was pushed to the wayside. Her development in terms of her powers was put in the back burner, all to push this stupid love plot with her and Deku. And that blew me. That is why I low-key stopped watching My Hero Academia, because whenever I would fall in love with a female character, I was like, yo, I know they were gonna get pushed in the back. Their character development would be halted, stalled. It was just not the vibes. But it isn't just in anime where I see this being a huge issue. If you literally have access to any TV show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With all of the talk that we're having about bad writing for female characters, I finally found the clip that I've been searching for months, where the Family Guy writers were talking about why they do Meg Griffin so wrong and how she consistently gets the short end of the stick in terms of her plot. And one of my favorite YouTubers was able to find it, so I'm just gonna play a clip where she talks about it. But yes, bad writing for female characters is across the board.
In an interview with Seth MacFarlane, he was asked, why is it hard to write jokes for young female characters? And he replied with, when you have a bunch of guys in their 30s sitting in a room trying to figure out how an adolescent girl thinks, it's very difficult. With Meg, we've landed on a sort of Jan Brady thing where she's just constantly shit on by the rest of the family. And it turns out to be very funny.
Sure, Jan.
But teenage girl characters are the hardest to write. You know, I didn't understand them then, I don't understand them now. So there you have it. The reason why Meg is treated like absolute garbage by everyone is because the writer's room was full of men who couldn't figure out how to write for a teenage girl. And instead of actually, I don't know, getting a woman's writer's perspective, they instead turned her into the family's punching bag.
So it isn't just anime where I noticed that the writing for female characters can just be so lackluster, and that's why there is an overall preference for the men in that TV show or piece of media over the women. And what I was specifically talking about that led me to getting all that controversy on TikTok was how that relates to Jessica Drew from Across the Spider-Verse. So the question that I proposed was, why is it that of all of the characters and all of the ships that came from Across the Spider-Verse, why is the ship between Peter B and Miguel the most popular one, when thematically it would make more sense for people to ship Miguel O'Hara with Jessica Drew? When I said this, people started to lose their ever-loving mind. Like, that was the most ridiculous thing that anyone could ever say. And I'm just like, why is this so ridiculous? And people were literally trying to argue with me, like hardcore argue with me for weeks over this. And I'm just like, let me explain. Miguel, we know Miguel. If you watch Across the Spider-Verse, like I said you should, you will know that he is low-key a control freak, but he still has members of his team that he relies on in order to control the entirety of the Spider Society, right? Shawty, the holographic Shawty, I forgot her name, I'm gonna put her on the screen, and Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew is literally his right-hand woman, and due to that proximity and the fact that those two depend on each other so much in order to do all of the stuff in Spider Society, I was just confused why that ship wasn't more prominent. And that led me to ask, why isn't that ship more popular? And people were so mad. They were trying to call me homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic. I was getting called all of the isms just because I asked the question. Because personally for me, I don't even see the chemistry between Peter B and Miguel. And when I see a ship, I want to see a little bit of something. I want to see a little bit of something, you know? Even when it's that damn enemies to lovers trope that I hate, but y'all love for some reason, I can get over my hate of the enemies to lovers trope when the tension and the chemistry is there. But for Peter B and Miguel, I couldn't see it. And so I asked people, why is this the most popular ship? And everybody was gaslighting me. They were gaslighting me like crazy, guys. I couldn't believe it. Because I started to get nonsensical replies that let me know that people were just being so disingenuous. Somebody said, oh, the reason why people don't ship Miguel O'Hara together with Jessica Drew is because she's pregnant and we don't want to invalidate that she has another partner that got her pregnant. I said, okay, that would make sense if Peter B literally for the entirety of the movie wasn't holding his baby, the product of him and Gwen's love. So, you're wrong. One comment that I kept getting over and over again was people practically saying I was homophobic because I was trying to invalidate a gay ship in order to promote my straight ship of Miguel and Jessica. And I just was confused because I never said that this was my OTP, my ship to end all ships. I was just confused why out of all of the characters, all the mixing and matching, why that was the breakout ship. Like back when I was active on Twitter, that was the ship that I would see the most fan art for, and I just don't see the chemistry between them. And I was asking people to explain why they ship it, and they were just giving me reasons why Jessica and Miguel shouldn't be together. And that is what I be talking about when I say it's misogyny. And people don't even realize it. Like, the idea of Jessica and Miguel being together was so outlandish that instead of answering my question about the chemistry and the dynamics between Miguel and Peter B, people were so focused on the fact that Miguel and Jessica shouldn't or couldn't ever possibly be together to answer the damn question that I actually proposed. And this is what I be talking about when I be mentioning the misogyny. It be so subtle that people can't even comprehend that that is what they're doing, being misogynistic. And this is what I be talking about when I say that there is misogyny in fandom spaces, because the very idea that Jessica could possibly in another universe be with Miguel was so outlandish to people that I was getting called every ism underneath the sun. But nobody was ready to unpack why they were so adamant that these two couldn't be together. And literally in the canon of the movie, they are some of the closest friends, co-workers, whatever in the entire Spider Society. Like, it be so subtle, but nobody wants to lock in. It's the same way that as somebody who was obsessed with Castiel and Dean being together in Supernatural, how there will be so many people saying they couldn't see Castiel and Dean ever being together when the chemistry for those two characters was palpable. It's the same thing, but people aren't ready to unpack all of their unconscious biases, and so it was a big conversation for them. It was going above their heads. Another topic that I honestly feel like you guys are now ready for as it relates to misogyny and shipping culture most definitely has to be Misogynoir and shipping culture. This is a mess, but I've been keeping quiet on this for months, but your girl finally has to break her silence. If you guys think that regular schmegular misogyny and shipping culture is bad, wait until the woman who is getting between this gay ship or whatever gay ship we're talking about is black. Oh nah, when the woman in question is black, you guys treat that woman like she is worse than Satan, and this happens time and time and time again, and it is a mess. Like I said with Jessica and Miguel, so many people were doing mind gymnastics to say how this woman could never, ever possibly be shipped with a man like Miguel. I said, okay, But as I go from fandom to fandom to fandom, this issue continues to persist. And I have so many examples that is wild. I was recently talking to people about the whole Arcane discourse and how the fandom is currently treating Mel because they hate her for getting in the way of the ship of Jason Victor. Trust me, I'm making a whole full-length video about that. But when you think about it, this phenomenon happens all the time, and I'm just going to speed run some examples, okay? I am definitely thinking about the girl from Voltron. They hated her for getting in between that gay ship. Example 1, Jessica. I already talked about this one. Y'all don't need a further explanation. That's number 2. The next example is a straight ship, but my point still stands. The whole ship between Mark and Killer Eve or Atomic Eve and Amber. I had to make a whole video defending Amber because the way y'all were doing her was out of this world. What is that? Example 3? Okay, example 4. Merlin. When I was watching Merlin, the way y'all did Guinevere. What is that? Example 4? I don't even know what example I'm on. But example 5, Arcane. There are people right now saying that Mel is manipulative and was abusing Jace. Abusing Jace, right? In order to have a reason to ship Victor and Jace. When Victor literally did so much evil in season 2 that he literally turned all of Piltover into mind slaves. And I'm going to make a whole video about that because I feel like y'all are doing some mind gymnastics. But if you guys are really listening to me here, you see that time and time and time again, Black women will be consistently put under the burner, thrown underneath the bus in order to justify shipping 2 men. In the case of Atomic Eve and Mark, that one was even a straight ship, but the theme continues over and over in every fandom that I'm in, where a Black woman will be sidelined, neglected, and even abused by the fandom, and also sometimes even the writers, in order to justify shipping 2 men. And I know some of y'all are going to struggle to understand misogyny, but goodness gracious, when it comes to misogynoir, that is intersectionality at its worst. At its best, who knows? I just know that it's a consistent theme that we need to talk about because there's no way that this keeps happening. And even though Black women will consistently point this out to y'all and show y'all that y'all are only doing this when it comes to Black women, obviously, like I said in this entire video, it happens to all women, but it's specifically insidious when it comes to Black women. Because in order to try to justify why a Black woman could never possibly be loved by the male lead or whoever we're talking about in said ship, y'all will use the trope of the strong Black woman archetype as well as the sapphic archetype to tell Black women to shut the hell up. And as a Black woman and as a person, period, I am not okay with that because that really puts out such a negative message to Black women. And I just don't know why y'all think it's okay. Because y'all are saying because you can do everything by yourself, you don't deserve to be loved. And I just think that is bonkers. What Megan say? My Ashley sound like bongos. It be sounding like bongos. Y'all be making me feel like I got 2 coconuts in my head just shaking. Because what are y'all saying? Because y'all only say that about Black women because you honestly think that our position in this world is not to be loved and we are not deserving of love at all. Because there are so many independent people on this planet and in the previous ships that I mentioned, but y'all never say that about them. I'm still mad about Arcane season 2, but for y'all to try to say that Mel deserves to be by herself because she's strong and she got it, because she's independent, when Jace is independent. And we know for a fact that Victor is independent. Victor became the supreme, hive mind. Y'all never say that about Jace and Victor, but the Black woman who's strong and independent deserves to be alone forever? Y'all are killing me. Like recently I've been playing D&D and every time y'all do one of these stupid disposable Black girlfriend trope things, it does like a 4d8 psychotic damage on my mental. I want y'all to stop.
Why do female characters need to be the scapegoat in ship fanfiction? You need to create conflict. Why do you make the female character act like she would commit crimes against gay people? Why can't she be an ally? I'm reading, Sasuke and Naruto stuff. Why are they making Sakura okay? You can write her how she is and still not make her want to commit hate crimes against gay people.
I definitely recommend that you guys go check out the comment section of that TikTok, because there were just so many different examples of people who actually did understand my points and gave their own examples about how fandom treats women. May it just be the actual women in these shows who fall victim to the hatred just because they are women, or actual female fans of whatever media we're talking about. Even though I made a whole section about why bad writing can prevent a lot of people in fandom from connecting to female characters, that isn't always the case. I'm going to make an example and I want y'all to follow me here, okay? So, like I said, it's easier to connect to a character when they have a lot of plot and a lot of character development in the media, right? In canon, right? But fandom can literally be whatever the hell we make it. That's why I brought up the Jujutsu Kaisen X Disney Princess example. Because we literally have free will to do whatever we want, right? And an example of people taking very obscure characters and doing the most with them definitely has to be the Marauders fandom. Somebody mentioned them on TikTok recently and I was like, oh my gosh, you're eating. Because literally when it comes to the Marauders fandom, I definitely thought I was hallucinating, because back when that lady, I'm not going to mention her name by name, but back when that lady wasn't the huge turf that we know her to be, and I was in the Harry Potter fandom, I had no idea who the heck these people were. I later found out that they were like Harry Potter's father, and people were just making all of these plots line theories, and that through fandom ideation we were able to build lore for these characters. And that is exactly what I be talking about when I say that we can do whatever we want in fandom. Because what do you mean you made a spin-off of Harry Potter using loose lore threads and expanding upon it? And I'm not gonna hold you, it's definitely because the Marauders were men. I definitely feel like if the Marauders were female and if it was like Harry Potter's mom and her group of friends, they wouldn't have gotten the same attention, spin-off, and love. But I digress. Now I want to talk about the second section of this video, which is definitely men over women in shipping culture. Well, I wanted to ask, why do you think that, I'm going to go with Achillean. Achillean sounds nice. Achillean ships tend to receive more engagement than sapphic ships.
I mean, there's just a baseline element of masculinity. A baseline is more valued by society. I would hope that's not a controversial statement, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be mad at me for saying it.
We're going to be in the comment section arguing. You know the vibe. You know the vibes.
It is just a factual statement, but I think at a deeper level that there is a specific aspect of how like sapphic love is only really desired by the broader culture or wanted to be seen when it can be heavily, fetishized and from a very male gaze approach. Whereas gay ships have this element of like, they're a little risque because people are weird about queerness in general, but they're still somewhat acceptable because, frankly, most people see men as subjects and see women as objects. To engage properly with sapphic ships would require them seeing women as more than an object that can be possessed, because they can imagine men both being subjects in a relationship, but they struggle, I think, to some degree, in viewing women in a relationship as both, subjects. And so this is where you get a lot of straight people who will be like, "Oh, who's the man in the relationship?"
I hate that,
because they need that objectification, that possession, to be a part of relationships, to conceptualize the relationship. So I think that's like a second layer. I think a third layer is just that, on average, women do not receive as much attention and care in writing, and particularly in relationships with each other in media. And so there's just less history of women shipping. When we look at shipping culture at all, it really starts with Spirk, right? Spock and Kirk in Star Trek. And that's because Spock and Kirk get all of the attention in the writer's room because of it's these like compounding layers of like, there's audience misogyny, there's systemic misogyny, there's the misogyny within the media creation. And so when you add all these things up, even unintentionally, even people who would be interested in more sapphic ships, there's just less likely to be content that is easily shippable, or that there is as much, demand. It's that self-perpetuating prophecy. You look at like video games and the idea that they're for men, which they aren't, but that was invented sort of 70s, 80s, right? Yeah. And because the marketing keeps going, well, men are the ones buying it, so that's why it's only for men, so we should only cater to men. It's a self-perpetuating prophecy that if you believe that, no one's going to read your fic if you write it as a sapphic fic. You're less likely to write a sapphic fic, because we unfortunately live in a heavily attention-based economy, and I think when you're an independent artist of any type, you want your art to be seen, and it doesn't mean that everybody's going to do that, but it does mean that there is a systemic pressure towards that. And so, if people are already convinced that these relationships don't matter as much, they are less likely to engage in creating fan art of them, creating fanfic of them. The other layer to it too is just that, like, creating art about women, especially if you are a woman, just increases the likelihood of getting certain types of harassment. I think it's like those are kind of the pillars. Is the pre-existing misogyny. It's the history of shipping being so heavily already dominated by specifically ships that are centered around men. Whether or not the partner is a man I don't actually think matter as much as the fact that it centers men, and that's another layer of misogyny. And then again, like, there's a reason why Bechdel made the Bechdel test as a joke. The joke of the Bechdel test is that there's so few relationships between women in media where they have any sort of meaningful interaction outside of centering men, that even outside of the fact that there's almost no lesbian relationships, because again, the Bechdel test isn't a real test. It was a joke between lesbians about the lack of women getting to talk to each other in film. It bothers me so much how much people don't understand what it means, and then they use it like unironically, and I'm like, please listen to what Bechdel has to say about her own writing. I have a whole video about Alison Bechdel's Are My Mother, and I just like start by debunking that thing. I just think that, like, you get all of those things, right? All of those things just layer onto each other over decades until you get to a point where sapphic love is so devalued by fandom. And then I think another layer that I didn't hit on is that because so many people are sexist and also patriarchal, they view women as at baseline sort of belonging to men. Like, you can just tell if you pay attention enough to how these people behave. It's like, oh, you struggle with, like, because I've seen this a lot when people bring up, like, oh, I ship this woman with another woman, and then they're like, oh, but she's with a guy, and like there's this idea that men own women, whereas in the case of Achillean ships, because men are generally seen as subjects, as full subjects, and treated as such, I think there's a layer there of interest for certain people where they haven't examined that inherent misogyny of, like, oh, these people are equals. And it's like, ooh, you should examine that. But they don't. I don't think people examine how much these things relate. I think the other layer, I would say, like, the next layer of that is just in general, and I'm sure you've seen this in a million places, people just hate women characters much more often because they're women.
I do notice that, yeah.
Yeah, so when you layer in just, like not even talking about the relationship between the two people, just the degree to which people in fandoms vehemently despise women characters for often bullshit reasons that really just come down to they're a woman, especially if they're a woman that is independent, strong-willed, any sort of thing like that. And generally, lesbians, we're not little meek flowers or whatever you say, big man. Like, like I said, as a very high femme lesbian, just that sort of weird sort of view of women and what women are allowed to be, I think really impacts stuff. Men are allowed to be complicated in media.
Yeah.
They can be messy and make mistakes and things. If a woman in the same media does anything even like remotely as bad, well, they're the devil. And they're unforgivable, and they're irredeemable, and like there's a bajillion examples.
I always think, I made a video about Amber from Invincible and how she's fandom's most hated, when we have Mark's dad, who's Mark's dad. And to this day, I still get weird comments like, you don't
It's like,
understand the show. But I'm like, the
like
teenage girl?
Amber is such a lovely character, and she is so correct for a lot of her opinions pretty much consistently throughout the show. I would say the show doesn't have any characters that are unflawed, because that's the point. It's trying to write complicated human beings with depth to them, which is good writing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it tells you that, like, like, man can literally be canonically an abusive piece of shit that the show continuously calls an abusive piece of shit, and people will defend him to the day they die.
Yeah.
And a woman is, like, slightly rude one time.
But then that also begs me a question. So I was doing research just trying to see all of the differing views on this topic so I could be more nuanced. And I'm going to read you this quick little thing I got from Reddit. I'm going to definitely expand on it in my video. But somebody on Reddit, I'm giving them anonymity, was like, how is there any confusion here? 1. The majority of writers are women. 2. The majority of readers are women. 3. The majority of women find men attractive. 4. The majority of readers who like romance are women. 5. The majority of readers who like erotica are women. 6. The majority of the world is firmly heterosexual. And so they were practically just trying to argue that, obviously, because my issue is a lot of what I've seen. This video is gonna cover a lot of topics.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover. There's so many different angles.
This is gonna be a long one, but I was specifically talking about how straight women like fetishize gay men. And I'm just like, well, if you're saying that, oh yeah, you like men, but you're straight, this is how my brain is thinking. If you're saying you're straight, right? Then why am I not seeing a lot of like hetero, like a man woman type thing, right? But it's
so I'm going to say something really upsetting, and it's going to piss off a lot of straight women, but it needs to be said. A lot of straight women struggle to see women as full subjects. And so the attraction, as I said earlier, to Achillean ships is that an Achillean ship, because they see men as subjects, as full beings, is that they get to see a relationship where both people are fully actualized and able to take action, right? Yeah. And that doesn't reflect reality, but that's just how sexist, cis, heteropatriarchal normativity seeps into the way that people perceive women and men. And so I think that's a big layer of it. I think just in my experience, there are a lot of straight women that don't unpack how patriarchy has impacted how they even view themselves, and especially how they view other women. I think a lot of patriarchal thinking pushes women in general towards animosity with each other instead of seeing each other as alike and connected. And I think part of the reason why sapphic people in general, we tend to bother, just by existing, bother a lot of straight people, regardless of whether they're men or women, is that we decentralize manhood and men in our lives. And I'm not saying masculinity. My partner is masked. They're butch. Like, literally use he, him pronouns. It's not saying that masculinity is bad. It's that we are outside of the acceptance of men's higher position and higher value, quote unquote. Again, I'm not agreeing with these things. I'm just talking about the beliefs that are
society.
Dominant. Yeah. And so I think a lot of women, part of their draw towards MLM relationship is that. And then I think the other layer of it is when we talk about like that fetishization, I don't think it's unique to straight women, and I don't think I would actually say that straight men are worse for it towards lesbians.
Because that was another point I was making, because I get extremely uncomfortable when men do it to lesbians, because there's a rapper, his name is Kodak Black, and there is another rapper, she goes by Young Ma, and he was literally like, oh my god, I'm gonna fuck her. And I had to look around, like, Young Ma, the lesbian?
The fuck?
But then that same grossness I feel towards that is the same way I'd be seeing how, like, because me, I'm a straight woman, so I obviously, like, TikTok put me in front of other straight women, and the way they be talking about, like, certain gay ships, like, I get very concerned.
And I want people to really know what we're saying, because they're going to misinterpret us. We just talked about how people do that. What we're both talking about isn't isn't interest in ships. I think everyone should be able to be interested in any fucking ship between any gender. And I think it would be silly to say others. What we're talking about is a specific fetishistic relationship to it, where it treats them in really weird, objectifying ways that
it feels icky.
Yeah, but I think that, yeah, I just do think that like straight women, when they do that, do tend to give much more humanity to the men in question, whereas like straight men will just look up porn. You know, like they're not going to write a fanfic that has like heart and emotion and feeling to it. They're just going to look up porn because they see us as objects. They see us as walking objects. And they also like, there's that whole weird thing that straight men have of the like converting a lesbian fetish that makes me want to gouge someone's eyes out.
It's like no, you real. It's borderline SA. When Kodak said that, I said
it is. No, it's so disgusting, and it's so telling because like a lot of lesbians are sexually assaulted, and fortunately, including me. And like, it's just it really does bother me because like I think very often societally men are allowed to be seen as people, and women just aren't. Even by other women for some fucking reason, because people just buy in because men are seen as full beings and we're not. Relationships between two men appeals to them because they can imagine them as both being like full subjects, and they just struggle to do that when they have to apply it to two women.
So this has been a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and it's definitely the BL fetishization / yaoi fetishization thing that has been a major issue in fandom. And I'm just trying to come at this topic with a lot of nuance because I don't want to sound homophobic, but Lord God, it's just been a weird thing that I've noticed as somebody who's been in fandom culture for a while. Like I said, fandom has this huge preference for men over women, and this is seen in straight women, people of the LGBTQ community. So it isn't like a specific sexuality thing, it's like a everybody thing, right? And we see this all the time, no matter what type of fandom that you're in. There has just been this strange thing that I've noticed, and a lot of people has noticed for a long time, and it has to be the sexualization of gay men. And I don't know, I don't feel like I'm the right person to talk about it, but I definitely need to talk about it because as somebody who loves shipping characters based off chemistry, I would never dog anybody for shipping two men together or two masculine presenting people together. But there is a certain interesting way that people do it when it comes to gay men. I like to call it the yaoi effect, where people will ship two male characters together and it gets weird fast. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like the way straight men fetishize lesbians, but it'd be like everybody be doing it to gay men. It's quite an interesting phenomenon that I've seen. Usually I can just look away, but recently it's been like an issue. As you guys know, I'm obsessed with manhwas. Check out my issues with manhwa video up in the iCards, wherever it is. But as somebody who goes on TikTok to ask for manhwa recommendations, because I love a good 200 chapter manhwa recommendation, a lot of the most popular manhwa recommendation that involves two men have been very weird. I don't know. A lot of the most popular men x men manhwa recommendations that have been going viral involve a lot of abuse, sexual violence, brutality, and I don't know, maybe it's me being a prude, but it's a weird energy that comes with people who be shipping men. And I'm not saying everybody who ships two men together be doing this weird stuff, but it's noticeably a problem that I've seen where it's like, why is this happening? Like, I ship a lot of female characters together, but I'm not recommending y'all know nothing where like two girls be abusing each other, torturing each other. Like, I wish I could put examples of what I'm talking about editor me will probably insert a little something to explain. I honestly have no clue how you guys are going to take this, but I'm going to play this video that I found from TikTok in the background just as a basis of my entire point. So when I'm talking about the fetishization of gay men, I be specifically talking about this. I like to call it the alpha and omega trend, where when two gay men are shipped, even if they got the same personality, one gotta be the big, strong, buff alpha, and one gotta be the submissive omega. And this is a trope that I see a lot when people fetishize gay men. It's actually quite concerning because, like I will continue to mention, I don't have an issue with people shipping gay men together. Most of my favorite ships aren't even straight. My issue is that there's a weird thing that happens when gay men are shipped. And I 100% believe that it is fetishization. Like, it's getting to a point where we even laugh and make jokes about it. And that's why I'm so glad I found that meme on TikTok, because that's literally what you guys do. Consistently, over and over, some of the most popular boy love manhwas involve this trope. And maybe I could forgive it, right? If there wasn't a lot of brutalization, sexualization, and overall SA that happens when gay men are shipped together. Like, I just don't understand why, in order to portray a love story between two men, there has to be so much rampant sexual abuse. That is just a personal gripe with me, and I might be called a prude for this, but I'm just like, why is... I think it's Painter of the Nights and Killing Stalking, some of the most popular BL manhwas that have flourished over the last couple of years. And it isn't just those two manhwas that dominate the space for lovers, I guess. But those really exemplify my issue with the fetishization and the preference for yaoi ships, because it always gets weird. Like what I was saying with how a lot of straight men sexualize and do weird ish with lesbians, that's the same vibe I'm getting for people who be doing this gay shipping thing, because it always goes left. Why is somebody getting abused sexually? Obviously, when it doesn't happen, you won't hear me complain about it. But it is such a prevalent issue. It is such a prevalent issue that I just get so scared to read something where the tag be boy love. Because I'm like, who's going to be a victim of SA? And at this point, I don't want to read it. I don't want to see it. And even though I keep engaging in the manhwa community, if I get one more recommendation where it's the Alpha Omega plus SA combo, I'm gonna have to go to a different planet. I don't know if Venus, Mars, or Jupiter got openings, but I'm literally gonna have to use that Elon Musk SpaceX nonsense and go take me a little visit. Because I'm not doing this with y'all, I'm not. And I'm quite concerned because I'm all for people shipping what they want, but some of the recommendations y'all are giving, it makes me feel concerned. And it's just an icky vibe. It's an icky vibe, especially when it comes to the amount of sexualization and fetishization of like sexual abuse. I don't know, y'all will probably be mad at me in my comment section, but it makes me feel very weird. I think the most popular is like Painter of the Night, but I don't like shipping abusers with their abuse victims, and that's been a huge thing that I've been seeing. I like to call it the Alpha Omega thing too, where it'll be like a super masculine man and it'll be like a really weak submissive man too. Like, that is my most hated ship dynamic, and I don't know, it gives me the ick. I don't like that. My last question, or last questions I guess, because I love to talk.
No, we can keep talking for ages. It's all good.
What do you think we can do about it? Because like you said, I definitely believe that, because I love to ship everybody. Like, if they got chemistry, I'm like,
it's all about chemistry. It's all about chemistry. It's so much about chemistry to me. I'm like, there are straight ships that I'm like, fuck, you somehow won me over.
Yeah.
Because they're just well written enough, the chemistry is good enough, the characters get along well enough, the actors are doing the right performance, whatever it is, depending on the medium, whether it's books or... It really is all about the chemistry, and it's all about the relationship between the people. To me, personally, I'm obviously like more invested towards lesbian ships because I'm a lesbian, but like, it does just weird me out. It does just weird me out that people don't engage.
I don't know. Do you have any recommendations? Because I really feel like we need to do homework. I'm sick and tired of people saying there's no fandoms, where it'd be like, where the lesbians at? Where the sapphic people at? In fact, where the non-straight ships at?
Well, I think when it comes to that, like, unfortunately, a lot of it's found in the fringe. Like, a lot of lesbian stuff is found in the fringe. Go look at Signalis, for example, indie horror game that has canonical lesbians as main characters, and that fandom is so exceptionally sapphic. I do think that, like, sometimes when we find a space that's our own, we tend to be like really active creating for it. That's just like an example, but I think it's just a thing of, like, one, I think people need to examine their general misogyny towards women and towards women characters, and examine, like, why do you think women can't be complicated and women can't be flawed and women can't have, mistakes, and whether or not you're applying a double standard between men and women in the same medium and the same media. Because it's so funny to me, sad funny, not funny watching people, like, talk endlessly about how X women is, like, the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity, and then there's, like, Genocide McGee, the man who did 10 genocides, and they're like, but he's just a little baby girl, and I'm like,
Aww.
Is he?
No, he's really not.
Like, she was slightly mean to the main character one time, and he kind of deserved it. But Genocide McGee's fine, but this is too far. Like, the double standards are so absurd, and that's just, like, baseline interacting with any woman as a character and any woman in real life. Because trust me, if you have those double standards towards fiction, you're gonna do that to women that you interact with IRL.
They're gonna be so mad about that. They're gonna be so mad. I can see it now.
Oh yeah, no, I know I'm saying stuff that will piss people off, but it needs to be said.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is just, like, when you see people being really vitriolic about women characters, examine why. And I'm not saying people can't hate women and, like, as individuals.
Yeah.
There's plenty of women I just fucking despise.
You don't want to mention that one.
But the reason why I despise them has nothing to do with them being a woman. It has 100% to do with what they do. But even then, like, what they say. But even then, I'm always, like, vigilant, because society is so vehemently anti-woman.
Yeah.
And then, like, layer 2 is just support the artists that are making art and are making fan art and are making fanfics and are doing those things in spaces, and show that support openly. And this is kind of just a general advice, like obviously that would help specifically with this issue, but more broadly, I do think that people need to do a better job of, like, if you like a fanfic, leave a comment.
Yeah.
Leave kudos, leave a comment. Because so many people just, like, stop creating because they get no engagement. And it really disheartens them.
I get that. YouTuber vibes.
Yeah, I had a friend telling me about one instance where the fanfic writer is, like, fully, they had joined a server for people that were fans of that fandom, and they hadn't gotten, like, any comments on like for a while. Yeah. And stuff, and it was really just disheartening them. And then in that server, they find, like, a bunch of people talking about that specific fanfic that they wrote and praising it to high heaven and stuff.
But they didn't leave no comments.
But they don't tell the creator at all, and that, like, pissed them off more. And they were just like, "Fuck it, I'm not posting for this fandom anymore because, like, none of you show me a single bit of kindness
in public." Is in public.
Yeah, but, like, yeah, like, it's just, like, I think in general, celebrate art publicly, and in a place where the artist can actually be, notice that appreciation. Because, like, artists make things because they want to connect with people. Not exclusively, but mostly. I think a lot of artists make things because they want to connect with people. They want that art to be seen, and they want to hear what people think about that art. And when you starve them of that, it just totally demotivates them. Yeah. And I think that's another, like, layer. We're talking about all these layers of why sapphic ships are just so ignored and so downplayed and so just unloved. And I think part of that too is just that people aren't always good about expressing admiration or appreciation for art when they encounter it. So yeah, seek out sapphic artists, support them, actually share art. And that's like visual art, fanfic, whatever it is, like share it. And yeah, and take the time to really examine your biases, because you'd be surprised, even if you're fully convinced you have none, that like, is there a reason why you like MLM ships way more than any ship involving women?
Yeah.
Because that might say something about how you see women.
Yeah.
And women in
Yeah.
romantic relationships, because I do think that a lot of people, including straight women, do not see other women as having agency, and devalue any form of relationship that has women in it, but especially sapphic romances where it's both women. Yeah, I think there's also like an element of the like no homo type thing. You know, I think there's a lot of straight women that are like, well, I don't want to be like received as one of those people.
Damn.
Like, if we're being honest,
Yeah.
you know, there's definitely some people that like, well, I don't want to engage in like lesbian fanfic, because then maybe people will think something about me. Like, you know, in the same way that straight men will do that with anything gay, with like gay men in it, you know?
I get it. I do.
Because I think the fear of being perceived as potentially an outsider is really deeply set in a lot of privileged people. And yeah, I'm like, one, maybe examine why you think it's really gross to be perceived as someone like me.
There's a lot of unpacking. There's a lot of
unpacking.
Yeah.
And that's not something you can do with just one video, and that takes time. So like, I do think you just gotta like, you know, ask yourself those questions and check in and stuff. And I'm not saying that people can't just genuinely like something more for completely innocent reasons. I'm just saying that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history and hierarchy and systemic oppression that are there. And when you see these mass trends, I can't help but say that it must be because a lot of people's individual behaviors are being influenced by societal factors.
Yeah. All I can say is you gotta ask yourself why. It's a lot of unpacking. It really is. Well, Aronach, thank you so much for letting me interview you. It seriously means a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
And yeah, if people want good lesbian art off the top of my head, I think that one of the best lesbian films of all time is Bound by the Wachowskis from 1996. It's a masterpiece. Go watch it. and then tell me that like sapphic relationships can't be interesting in media.
They probably will, but you know, we can only try our best, okay? That's why I'm looking at y'all in the comment section. Y'all better be putting recommendations. This is y'all homework.
There's so many, like, just even stuff that I've watched in the last year. There's a recent anime called I'm in Love with the Villainess that was really fun. It's
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, like that's a recent one. I mean, obviously, Arcane is messy, but it is there. And I do think it's interesting to examine that both gay ships of that show are messy, but one of them's way more hated.
Arcane has given us a lot. Arcane videos coming soon, y'all. I promise.
Oh, yeah. So many people are doing Arcane videos. I'm interested to see the like variety of opinions.
Well, thank you once again. Guys, please go check out Aronach's channel. When you go, say Ella Pastoral sent you so she knows.
Please do, yeah.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm so sorry this video took me 50 days and 50 nights to make. I was definitely trying to be as respectful and as nuanced as I physically could be in this video. So I really hope I did that and I was able to get my points across without being problematic. We'll see though. Y'all gonna have to tell me about myself. But I definitely am asking you guys to put your favorite recommendations for any like LGBTQ plus anything. I definitely need to like be reading more, watching more, listening to more music. I don't know. I need more recommendations, y'all. Y'all gotta hook me up. If you guys like this video, please make sure that you hit the thumbs up button. Leave your comments. I'm looking for those recommendations. And I'll definitely see you guys in the next one. Bye.